Okay, I got the Ares science vessel completely decked out. We've got a ton of science stuff up here. We'll get to the science part of it in a minute. How about that? Let's start at the bottom and just work our way up, just to give you guys an idea of how this is all going to work. So we have this booster stage. Booster stage is very, very important because it's going to get us most of the way up into space. Past that, we have our central stage, stage 2, which is just that orange tank and that Rocco Max engine. We have seen in the past that this is actually quite an effective setup, but there is a lot more weight at the top, so it's not going to get us quite as far as it did with the mid-miss probe. Now, once this is done, once we have our middle section here, and by the way, it has an extra tank in the middle just for some extra fuel. Once that's burnt out, we should be on our way to the moon. That's usually the goal, but if we're in orbit with it, that's fine. It's fine. We have plenty of fuel at that point. So after that, we break off. We burst open our amazing fairings and reveal the actual science vessel itself. It is fitted out with a first stage for it. This is usually to get you within the orbit of the moon and then to slow you down enough that you're not having to burn too much fuel on your main stage here. So you have this. Now, once this is done, so you can potentially land it. It's just a poodle engine. It's just this one. You can actually, if you're going slow enough, you know, sub 1 meter a second, you can actually land on it and not blow up. It's possible. I've done it before. It's just difficult. It's a lot easier on min-miss, where you're capable of maintaining that speed for a much more lengthy time than as opposed to on the moon, where it speeds you up because it's got a bit more of a gravity well going to it. So you have that. Usually you'll break off and then just land, you know, break this off on your way down to the moon, say within, you know, 1,000 meters from the surface. So that way it falls away from you and blows up before you actually land with this main thing. So this main thing that's actually an engine here. It's hard to see, but it is there. It's a low profile engine, which is right here. So as you can see, it is very low profile. It does as it says. And it has 120 max thrust. It's not bad, actually. The amount of fuel that it uses is pretty nice. It's not the best, but it is pretty nice for what we're getting at here. And we're equipped to go to 4 biomes. Whether we'll get there or not is 2 different things. I mean, we really need to land in the right spot to begin with in order to get to 4 different biomes. But if we even get 3, that's good. So we have our landing lights at the bottom and now allow us to see if we happen to land in a darker area, which, as we've learned, is quite nice. I have some lights around the bottom and on the top, and then I have some lights up near the actual capsule. This just allows me to maneuver it if it's dark. Then we have our fuel tanks. So these are, you know, pretty much our secondary tanks, although it uses the fuel first because the fuel pumps are pumping from those tanks into, and you can tell by the little arrows there, it's pumping out of this outside tank into the middle one, which is where the engine is stationed. Now, the middle tank has quite a bit more fuel than the outer ones. So middle tank has 720 fuel, 880 oxidizer. The outer tanks only have 180 fuel. So we get rid of these fuel tanks fairly quickly as far as their payload is concerned, but we don't actually break them off because they are containing our science pieces. There's ways to optimize how I have this set up, but I really like this setup. It's worked, and that's the important thing, right? So we have our Science Juniors. On the Science Juniors, we have thermometers, and this is mirrored 4 ways, right? So we have all of that set up. We have the parachutes on the top for when we return to Kerbal. This entire top stage will return. And then we also have our solar panels to make sure that we're constantly getting some type of energy if all possible. We want to stay on the lit side of the moon. We have a large control unit, SAS unit. It's kind of weird how I have this set up because there technically is a hole there, but it counts it as a surface on the top. And on that surface, I have the goo canisters and then this newer science thing, which is a soil sample. I really like to have the soil samples in the middle thing here. I'll even open up the bay door. but we're not fitting it in on this version of it. We do have our life support in there because we're going to be away for quite some time. We have some batteries, and that is just mirrored on each side as well. So let's close that. We have food, water, and oxygen, and then we have on this side, it's the waste canister in there. So like I said, we're geared out for 4 biomes, potentially. Whether we get there or not is a completely different story, and I know that I don't have all of the science pieces, because here's the thing, when you get to the moon for the first time, you don't necessarily have like the gravitron or the any of the atmospheric stuff, which you don't really need on the moon. But what I'm trying to say is you don't have that science stuff unlocked yet, so I don't have it for this vessel. However, we have a secondary mission planned later, which will collect the rest of the science on the moon using all of those extra pieces that we just didn't have, plus some really cool ones that we'll bring along. And I will I'll tell you guys about that as we get closer to doing that mission. We'll probably finish the moon's biomes up with this current setup first. So this is probably going to be a couple trips there and back. We have... Where did we... I'm looking at the map now. We landed in the Highlands. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 biomes to go. If we go at this rate, it would take at least 4 trips. So there we go. And let's do our fairings, put those set up. Where are they? Aerodynamic. Aerodynamic. There we go. And boom. Cool. Those look like they're good to go. All I'm going to do now, in the meantime, is attach the craft to the fairing, which we learned last time is a very good idea. It helps with stability, and then from there we'll be good to go. So unfortunately, one of the science parts was causing my frame rate to absolutely tank, like 2 to 1 frames per second, which was the soil sample. As you can, wow, this thing's wobbling. As you can see, I have removed it, so it is no longer there. Let's launch the sucker. Oh, also, New Rod Kerman is joining us this time around. The reason why is because Jebediah has been moved to the X203 project. Well, currently, its current state is X201, but they're working on the X202, which is why they need his piloting expertise in order to start moving with that. So that's where he's at. He's not going to the moon for quite some time. New Rod and Bill Carman and a couple other people are really going to take care of the rest of the science on the moon. Okay, don't blow up, don't blow up, don't blow up. I hate this part. Get away from it. Nailed it. That was actually beautiful. I'd say that was on a scale of 1 to beauty. That was gorgeous. That was gorgeous. I say as of a giant phallic ship heading into space. So I did my typical thing and sped up time to my apoapsis and started going. I really should have more of an angle when I launch, but as of this current time, the ships that I'm launching, they don't like it too much, right? So I gotta kind of launch more vertically than I do horizontally. Otherwise, I would like to start making my gravity turn at about 10,000 meters, starting it at 8, really getting it going at 10,000, and then being just about horizontal at about 25 to 30. So that would be ideal, but that's not happening anytime soon. I just I need a different ship setup in order to even consider doing that. But as you see, we once again have plenty of fuel. So this is my stage only view, and we're, you know, about a third of the way through our fuel, and we're, you know, once again we need to get to orbital velocity, which is roughly 2,200 meters a second for Kerbal. So we'll get there quite rapidly, actually. We are going to burn out this stage by the looks of it, but like I said, that's fine. This stage is meant to get us in orbit. The next stage, stage 1 of our science vessel, is to get us to the moon and then kind of slow us down there. So we're all good. We have plenty of fuel as far as I am concerned. And we have an orbit, and our thing just wore out. So that was just that fuel taking off. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did last time, which was pretty cool, which is getting this going like so. And then we're going to, boom, just get those away from our ship, right? We don't want those anywhere near us because, well, they get in our way. And then the next thing I'm going to do is break off that and just do a small thrust, just like that. Just get us away from it. That way we can actually make our maneuver. It's a pretty glorious sight anytime we do that, though. I'm quite happy with that. We have plenty of height on each of our periapsis and apoapsis. I couldn't ask for better. So we're going to set the moon as our target and then set up our maneuver node. Now for this maneuver, I'm actually opting to go on the inside of the moon's orbit here. And another thing I'm doing is I'm letting my periapsis be quite large. It's about 1 million, right? As opposed to about 100,000, which is what we normally would do. I have a reason for this, and it's actually pretty smart if you think about it. So when you're making a plane change, if I'm want to land more on the North Pole or the South Pole, you lose a lot less fuel when you are doing it from a greater angle. So say I'm at 1 million meters on my periapsis or my apoapsis, even my periapsis both. When I go and make the change in my verticality of my orbit, it will use less fuel. So I want to kind of have my orbit be quite large here, just in case I need to make a change like that, because we're trying to land in very specific spots. We know we've gotten to highlands, that's fine, but there are plenty of other biomes that we need to land near, and in order to do that, we got to be pretty precise. So I want to use as least amount of fuel as I can doing that. So it's just a little trick. I'm purposefully making my orbit the way that I have it currently. Also, this won't take us very long to burn here, but we should use roughly a third of our fuel doing this. That's my estimation just from previous attempts. Oh, look, there's all of my debris that I've knocked off. As you can see, it had a bit more velocity than me, which is why it's ahead of me as opposed to behind me. I think that's because I spun it away from me. I might actually go shooting by these things. I'm kind of curious what that's going to look like. Also, it definitely looks like about a third of our fuel. I don't think I'm ever going to get close enough to these fairing pieces to actually see them at a distance. But, you know, it's kind of cool, right? We're shooting by our fairing pieces. Actually, there's the engine component from the previous stage, so we definitely won't see that, but we do see it in the distance. Yeah, there's no way you could see that. You would need a massive pair of binoculars to actually see that far and witness that little piece of debris. Maybe if it was against the sun, you would see a little black dot, but it's not, so unfortunately we don't get to see those little pieces of our previous stage. Although it is pretty cool. It's strange to think about. Like, imagine real spaceships. They have to deal with it, you know, because they can't be running into debris because it could cause punctures within, like, a space station or a space shuttle. It could cause some serious damage, so you gotta be aware of that. Even, like, little meteorites do that kind of damage, so it's interesting that I just leave this crap in my orbit around the planet. If I was doing this more role-playing, I would definitely get rid of this stuff on my way up into space, so that way it goes back down into orbit and burns up on its way back down, or just explodes on the surface. That would probably also have an effect. Wow, I went a little crazy with my orbit. I'm gonna slow down a bit, just a little bit. It's not gonna require much, but just enough that I get it kind of back to where it was, which is about right there. That'll work perfectly. So we used roughly half of our fuel. You know, a third, a half. It's all pretty ballpark for this one stage. This one stage isn't gonna matter too much because we're probably gonna ditch it while it still has fuel anyways. It's kind of like if we have extra fuel with this stage, whatever, we'll use it for strange things, like potentially getting a really, really good orbit, you know. That would be ideal. So let's actually consider that at the moment. Let's slow this sucker down so we get an orbit, and once we have that done, we will kind of figure out where we want to land. I mean, that's going to be the next important step to this. I'm actually going to go ahead and start my orbit here because I don't really need to wait that long. It would be more precise, sure, but at this point, like I said, I've got fuel to spend. So I want to get kind of on a perfect plane here. I want to get as close to just the horizon of the moon there. Okay, so we'll do that. Now, how do I want to set this up? I actually don't know. I would assume I do it like here-ish. You know what? That's actually fairly close. Like right there would be perfect. And I only need to burn 45 meters a second. If I was much closer, I'd have to burn a lot more than that because you're working more against the forces of gravity. Something to consider. And getting pretty close. I want to go straight at 0. Or like 2, actually. 5, 4, 3, 2. Right there. Because then it kind of gets us fully up to speed. And boop. Perfect. I think that's as good as we're going to get with that. And that is quite good. So we have a few places that we could land. As you could tell, that on this side of the moon, pretty much right where it's at actually, was where we landed. And that was fairly far away from this major crater, which we can see pretty well because of the lighting here. I got to figure out which crater that is. So I'm currently looking at the moon, my map for the moon, that is. And if this was the twin craters, which it is, then this one is the east crater. And I landed just north of that in a giant highlands spot, which explains why I landed in highlands. As opposed to about right here, over, begins the Midlands and the what's the other one? Midland craters, and there's a couple other ones that are around this area. It takes up actually most of the biomes of the moon is from this way over. So where do I want to land? I got to kind of figure out what's perfect here on the what's directly on the horizon that I could pick up. You know what? Let's do this. Let's slow down completely. Why is... Oh, it's because I'm facing completely the wrong direction. I was wondering where my prograde and my retrograde are. And I'm going to just gently slow down and get a much closer orbit so we can get a better idea of where the heck we want to land. It'd be easier once we're a little closer to the moon, at least. And I could probably start slowing down now to get the apoapsis lower. Just within 100 meters. Or 100,000 meters of the moon will probably be the best way to do it, which is kind of what I'm shooting for here. It'll get us close enough that I can see a little bit better where I can potentially land. So what do we got? We have that eastern crater. We have the twin craters. We can actually hit up the twin craters, but then we're in a weird spot where the twin craters matches a... What is it? Is it a set of Midland? Oh, I don't know. It's always really hard to tell because there's like the Midlands, the Highlands, the Northern Basin, and they're all kind of the same color on the map I'm looking at. Not that I'm colorblind, it's just difficult.